Do you think it's conceivable that in the next 50 to 100 years, the US could no longer be the dominant power globally?
Yeah. Yeah, more than conceivable.
More than conceivable.
Because I have to bet on what's going to happen. I'm a global macro investor. I studied the last 500 years of history, and it happens over and over again in all cases. People always think that the future would be a slightly modified version of the present, and it's not. Okay.
But are you optimistic about the United States at the moment?
The United States is very much a big picture. No, I think it's very much in this issue. So if I go down my list, it definitely has this debt money economy problem. We can get into that. Okay. It definitely has the internal conflict power in which there's a fight between the left, the hard left and the right due to wealth and values gaps and people not believing that the system will work for them. And so democracy is at risk because they don't believe this. They're not going to follow the rules in the sense they don't believe the rules are going to. Number three, it's of course the leading one side in this great power conflict of the world, right? In other words, yes, between the United States and the one side, let's say, and China and the allies, their allies on the other side. I mean, in the news, you just saw the meetings of Xi, Putin, Modi, and that group over there walking down, and okay. So now it should be pretty clear how the sides are lining up. Okay. It's always better to be in a place that's not in one of those wars. Like, stay out of wars. And of course, climate has an effect. And of course, then we have technology. The United States and China are in the big technology competitions. The others are really not in the game. They don't have the money, this innovation and talent, in a sense, to play at that scale and so on. So we have a great, technology war, which can be used to create great advances, but at the same time could be used for great conflicts. And so now the question is going to be who wins the technology war, because the winner of the technology war is going to win all wars. Okay. In other words, they'll win the economic war. They'll win the geopolitical war because technology. And I'm not saying anything that hasn't repeated through history.
Give me that historical context if you can, just for people.
The technology, for example, nuclear.
Yeah.
Nuclear won World War II.
And does this cycle go back further than just...
Oh, no, it goes back. That book, okay. In order to understand these things, because I have to bet on what's going to happen. I'm a global macro investor. I studied the last 500 years of history, and it happens over and over again in all cases. So I could take the British Empire. I could take you through all the empires, but the Dutch Empire before that and all this, and it happens all the time.
I watched your videos about this, and it was truly fascinating how predictable this stuff is, and the work that you've done to uncover this trend throughout history. I mean, it's almost, for me, it was almost irrefutable watching the evidence in I think it's like a 40-minute video on YouTube where you show how this is played out through empires. And it begs the question, because when you live in the United States, when you're in the present time, you almost never assume that the empire you're in could fall. You don't see how it could happen. We're so strong. We're so great. We're so that doing AI over here, have money over here. Everything's good. The sun's shining. It's inconceivable.
Of course. People always think that the future would be a slightly modified version of the present, and it's not. Okay, watch over decades, but it's like watching a person grow.
Yeah.
Okay?
Yeah.
You watch your kid or you watch a person and your age, any age,
my parents.
And that's what you see.
Yeah.
Okay? And you don't see the life arc.
Yeah.
Okay, but the life arc is irrefutable.
But do you think it's conceivable that in the next 50 to 100 years, the US could no longer be the dominant power globally?
Yeah. Yeah, more than conceivable.
More than conceivable. What do you mean by more than conceivable?
I mean that these evolutions always take place, and they take place in a certain way, and that if you look at the probabilities and the paths and the symptoms, there is a challenge. The United States is facing a number of those challenges. And we're at a moment where it's a question of whether the system and the people can get control of the situations and deal with it strongly and well in a way where they are not fighting to the point of damaging each other and damaging the prospects for the future.
But I mean, the United States is very innovative. Got all these great innovative companies here. So surely.
Yeah, but you can't make generalizations about the United States. And you can't make generalizations, by the way, about the markets either. What you see is 1%, a small percentage, 1% of the population. If you're looking at the breakdown of incomes and also you're looking at the innovation, the stock markets, which stocks are doing well, who owns those companies, and all of that, about 3 million people in a country of 330 million people are really unbelievably doing great. And you could pick the neighborhoods they're in and what they're doing. And then there's the top 10%, let's say, which is the people around them, and they're really, really doing great in that world. At the same time, the bottom 60% of Americans have below a sixth grade reading level.
Wow.
And that population, in terms of the basics, being productive, you have to be productive and be prosperous. So what you need to have a successful society is to have broad-based productivity and prosperity. Okay, and that's a problem. Okay, so which America are you looking at? And are you watching the war that's happening between these?